Okay, now we have version 0.6 or 1.6, sorry, and now we start to have some really nice features on here. So the first thing you see is you got now these edit buttons. So this is the view, that's the edit for this is the raw HTML. So the raw HTML is then converted into an HTML structure we see here, and there's the text node hashes, and again we can edit them now. I'll show that in a second, and then we rebuild them over here, right? So one of the coolest things is to refresh this. You also have these buttons who now replicate the cool thing, or you can just click on this guy and then it does the whole flow, right? So let's see this in action. So basically you can see this HTML is equivalent to that HTML, but that's the original, that's the rebuild. So what you see is this HTML is converted into this structure here, right? So you can see the head is there, the title is there. So let's just look, if I change the tag, edit, yep. If I change the title to AAA, the tag, and the title to BBB, and I rebuild it, I can see, look, AAA, BBB, right? It's actually nicely done, right? So if I go body, I said not a body, right? Again, I rebuild, you got there, right? Not a body, extractly, quite nicely, right? So, and again, if that, change that to PAA, there you go, there's my PAA, right? So you could see that he converts this. It's actually quite interesting because that got converted not slash body, because clearly you shouldn't have spaces here, right? I think this might actually work. Right, so there you go, that actually worked correctly. Not a body, not a body. Cool, right, so let's just load maybe a more interesting HTML. So again, that's more like it. So there's a parse here, there's some more content, and sort of rebuild. So now the coolest thing here is actually, this is the hashes, right? So you could see that these hashes are now placed where the content's supposed to go, right? So you could see there's the hash there, there's the hash there. So an interesting way to do that is if I put this hash, for example, simple text HTML example in a bunch of different places here on the HTML, I can just put it there and I rebuild it. So now you can just see, look, there it is, right? The content is there, right? And if I now modify the text here and I rebuild it, you got rebuild there, right? So, pretty freaking cool, right? So again, let's just bring back the original text. So a little trick you can do is because you can change this. So if you just remove all these tags, you can actually see now all the placeholders. So you can see these are the placeholders. In a way, this is now almost a raw representation of this dictionary. And if I come in here and I add that as a value, that will now be replaced here, as a value somewhere. As long as it's correctly HTML, there you go, a value, right? And now the other thing that we could do, let's just take a look at just worth showing is the traffic that goes through. So if I just reload the page, there's two things that are interesting, right? So the first one, again, in the IDF logic, you could see that I got a bunch of files from 1.1, 1.4, 1.5, but actually the 6 I'll show in a second actually added a lot of components, right? And this is by design because I did a major refactoring here, which actually helped me a lot in a lot of the debugging for this version, right? Because the code was actually getting quite complex. But if I just now clean this up, and you can actually get to see what's actually happening is we're actually calling the web service. So now you can see that he called the HTML and then the hashes. So this service is where you send fundamentally the HTML dictionary. Actually, let's just parse this guy here. There you go, right? So this one sends the HTML and gets the hashes. Actually, the order, yeah, it was not correct. Sorry, let me just clean up the order because the waterfall was not correct. So let's just do this again, execute it. There you go, hashes in HTML, that makes sense. So we send the HTML and we get the dictionary, which is what you see here, and then we get the hashes there, which is what you see there, right? And then the next call is we send the HTML, where the payload is the HTML dictionary, which is that stuff here, which is the dictionary, and then the hashes, which is there, right? So again, if you modify this, that modifies that. So that's kind of the flow. So final thing just to show on this version, which is now starts to have a nice workflow, is the code. So one of the things that I changed a lot from 1.5. So this 1.5 looked like there was a lot of changes that were done, but it added quite a bit of complexity. So one of the things I didn't like with this version was that the playground was getting quite busy. So the playground had a bunch of HTML, was not proper components. So I spent quite a bit of time to actually build this. So what you now have is the created column, which is on the left, the middle column, which now has the JSON edit mode, JSON view mode. So you can see I broke it all down into components, right? So the original, actually this is on the left, has the edit mode, the view mode, the sample selector. So each of these now is a nice, again, segmented utilities. So you could see it's a HTML element. We actually load up the JavaScript, the CSS, and the HTML here. I also added this, which are components. So again, this cleans up a lot of the code. So this is basically utils that now exists here, which was added, which now allows us to load template, load styles, etc. And this is a good example of this. As you've seen here, dramatically clean up this code, right? So now this code is very clean because you go in there. In fact, there's even one version that even has this on static files, so it's even better than this, and then get the listeners update. So the idea is that this code should be as simple as possible because you should only have logic that matters there. So this is the HTML edit mode, and then you got the CSS relevant to it, and you got the HTML that was loaded in there, right? So this is super powerful because you got a nice segmented bits of this. So you edit this, you edit the other part. So it's starting to look pretty good, right? So this is kind of the functionality, and you can play with it, and it's again all open source. So yeah, have a go.